Hello, YouTube divers. This is WaterDive 122, and I want to welcome you all back to another episode of Magic Metal Mondays. Yes, we are finally on episode 19 of Magic Metal Mondays. My goodness, it's so far been my most successful series, and I thank you so much for that, my fellow YouTube divers. Making musical rankings anytime I can find. So, what we are going to be doing today, we are going to be ranking my top 10 metal bands. Now, a while back, I did my top 10 metal albums. You could go check that out if you want to. And a lot of the bands on this list were not featured on my top 10 metal albums video. So yeah, we're going to do a little bit of variety here. And there was one band on this list that's kind of on the edge between hard rock and heavy metal. But without further ado, I won't say anything too much, but let's get frickin' started. So, coming in at number 10 is a band that, honestly, I'm not really that crazy about, but I do love a lot of their stuff. And this would be a lot of metalheads like top 3 or maybe even their favorite. I see why we are talking about Iron Maiden. Now, obviously, Iron Maiden is one of those bands that, everyone's talking about. And, I honestly have not really gotten into them that much. Now, before you start ranting about me in the comment section below, I love everything that they did with Bruce Dickinson. Like, the Bruce Dickinson era is obviously my favorite Iron Maiden era. The first two albums with Paul Di'Anno on vocals is meh. And the albums in the mid-90s with Blaze Bayley on vocals is just meh. But everything that they did with Bruce Dickinson back in the 80s, and of course, what they're doing now is just amazing. Of course, Bruce Dickinson is one of my all-time favorite singers. And if you remember from my Albums of the Year saga, one of Iron Maiden's albums actually topped a year. The Power Slave album topped the 1984 year, but after that, Iron Maiden didn't really make another appearance on that saga. But now I'm talking about him here, and Iron Maiden is, just one of those bands where I feel like, maybe I should get into them more, but I know a lot of their stuff. I mean, I love Number of the Beast, and of course, Power Slave is my favorite Iron Maiden album by far. Somewhere in Time is pretty freaking good. I need to check out Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, and Fear of the Dark, and Brave New World, and Book of Souls, all that stuff. So yeah, with that said, because I'm not really that crazy about Iron Maiden, I have to keep them at number 10, but they're a top 10 band for sure. Iron Maiden's a great band. I have a lot of respect for them, especially Bruce Dickinson, but in my opinion, I'm just not crazy about them. So with that said, Iron Maiden at number 10. Number 9, now this is the only band that on this list that's kind of a cross between hard rock and heavy metal. We are talking about Def Leppard, another band from the United Kingdom. Holy jeez. Now, I say that this band is a metal band mainly because their 1983 album and my personal favorite Def Leppard album, Pyromania, was considered to be a metal album. So, there's that. But all the rest, and plus they're a freaking heavy band. Hysteria is a freaking heavy album. That's probably my second favorite Def Leppard album. And High and Dry from 1977, I think. That's a really great album too. Bringing On the Heartbreak is one of my all-time favorite Def Leppard songs. It's off of that album. And on Pyromania, of course, my favorite Def Leppard song of all time is on it. That is Photograph. Love that song. Foolin' and Rock of Ages are two other Def Leppard tracks off of that masterpiece. And then if you look on Hysteria, you have another pair of my all-time favorite Def Leppard songs. Pour Some Sugar on Me, and of course, Love Bites, the big hits off this record. No duh. I might make a Def Leppard album rankings very soon. Who knows? So with that said, Def Leppard coming in here at number 9. They're a freaking amazing band, and I love them freaking much. Coming in at number 8, we are going to be talking about Dark Angel. Now, if you remember from my Dark Angel album rankings that I made several months ago, I basically said that Dark Angel is one of the most underrated thrash metal bands ever, and that still lives up true to this day. They are a insane band. They're by far the most intense band that I've listened to. Yes, I think they're way more intense than Slayer. And that's saying something, because Slayer is freaking intense to the freaking bone. So, so with that said, Dark Angel, though, they only have 4 albums, but they're all freaking amazing to me. Darkness Descends is one of my favorite thrash metal albums of all time. Really one of my top 20 favorite metal albums of all time, period. One of my favorite albums from 1986. Even I even enjoy the debut album, even though on my Dark Angel rankings I placed it at the bottom. I still like it. Welcome to the Slaughterhouse is freaking amazing. Hell is on Its Knees is also really great too. Couple that up with their later albums with Time Does Not Heal and Leaf Scars, you got yourself some freaking amazing band. And you got yourself a freaking amazing career right then and there. Don Dottie, who was the lead singer for them on their first 2 albums, I kind of prefer him over their singer for their later 2 albums, Ron Reinhardt, but they both sound amazing. And, I absolutely love them. So with that said, not Iron Maiden, I already talked about them. Dark Angel coming in here at number 8. Now we move on to number 7. Now, number 7, this was a band that I literally had just gotten into. If you remember from my previous video, you automatically know who it is. I'm talking about freaking Savatage. Savatage. Oh, man, a big shout out to Iakobe. He is a big fan of Savatage, and I watched his album ranking videos, and based on the audio samples that he provided within that video, it made me go like, this is a very interesting band. Maybe I should check out their catalog. And I did, and they were freaking off the freaking charts. And plus they have one of the greatest guitar players ever in the history of metal. And that is the late man Chris Oliva, brother of lead vocalist John Oliva. Yeah, what more else can I say about Savatage? Hall of the Mountain King, one of my top 20 favorite metal albums ever. You also have Gutter Ballet, Edge of Thorns, Handful of Rain, Power of the Night. You have Sirens. You have the Dungeons Are Calling EP, which is by far my favorite EP of all time. Just know that. And if you want more about my opinions on all of Savatage's records, go watch my previous video where I ranked Savatage's albums from worst to best. And I kind of go into more detail there. So, with that said, Savatage coming in at number 7. Now, from number 6 onwards, these are among my favorite bands, period. If you remember from episode 7, my top 10 bands video, you will likely see some familiar faces here. So, number 6, the band that started it all, Black Sabbath. Now, this was, now, I know on my top 10 overall bands list, I placed Anthrax below Black Sabbath, but recently I've been listening to a lot of Anthrax recently, and I feel like Anthrax just edges them. But Black Sabbath, in of their own selves, are still an amazing band. They were one of the first rock bands I was exposed to when I was like in 7th or 8th grade with the song Paranoid. And like I said with Savatage, if you want more information on my opinion on Black Sabbath's albums, I did a 2-part ranking of theirs on episode 12. You can go back and check that out if you want to. Black Sabbath, extremely influential band to all of these metal bands. Like, there would not be heavy metal without Black Sabbath. Now, a lot of people say that Deep Purple or Led Zeppelin or bands like that started heavy metal, but I heavily disagree. I truly believe it's Black Sabbath that started it all. Ozzy Osbourne, Ronnie James Dio, Tony Martin. I love all of those eras. Tony Iommi is one of my favorite metal guitar players. Probably my favorite left-handed guitar player of all time. He's just freaking amazing. Geezer Butler's also great on the bass, and Bill Ward is an okay drummer, I guess. Vinny Appice, who would later join Dio on his solo career, is also up there too. Like, Black Sabbath, what more can I say? They're an amazing band, and I love them so much. And thank you, Black Sabbath, for creating the metal world. So with that said, Black Sabbath coming in here, number 6. Number 5, Anthrax. Yes, Anthrax. Now, like I said with Black Sabbath, I originally, on my top 10 bands video, I put Anthrax like a step below Black Sabbath. But I've been playing a lot more Anthrax lately, and like I said from the beginning, even though they're my least favorite band from the Big Four, they are still an amazing band, and I love them. I love all four bands from the Big Four, for that matter. So, Anthrax, and again, if you want more opinions on their albums, you could go check out episode 8, where I ranked Anthrax's albums from worst to best. Um, so, yeah, what more can I say? I mean, Joey Belladonna is one of my all-time favorite vocalists in metal, and really in general, period. Frank Bello is an underrated as heck bass player. I love the duo of Dan Spitz and Scott Ian, and I even love the so-called new addition of Andreas Kisser from Sepultura, and another guy who played on their most recent album, For All Kings. I don't remember his name, but he freaking smokes. Anthrax is just an amazing band. And I don't quite understand why people lower them down on their Big Four totem pole. I mean, I'm guilty of this myself, but I love Anthrax, even though they're at the bottom of my Big Four totem pole. So with that said, Anthrax here, number 5. Number 4, Slayer. Yeah, I'm talking about Slayer. Slayer, freaking amazing band. They're intense as I'll get out. Rain and Blood is, of course, one of my favorite albums of all time. South of Heaven's really great. Seasons in the Abyss. Hell Awaits. Basically, everything that they did in the 80s. And Seasons in the Abyss. And I even enjoy some of their modern albums, like World Painted Blood. Heck, even freaking Christ's Illusion or God Hates Us All. All those are phenomenal albums to me. But what separates Slayer from the rest of the Big Four, like compared to Megadeth or Metallica, I just connect more with Megadeth and Metallica. But we'll get to those bands next. So with that said, Slayer here, number 4. Number 3, Megadeth. Yes, another Big Four band. All the Big Four metal bands will be on this list. Just know that. Megadeth is a freaking amazing band. They're the most technical band to learn of the Big Four. Yeah, probably even more technical than Anthrax, Slayer, or even Metallica. Dave Mustaine, Marty Friedman, Nick Menza, Dave Ellefson, and the list just goes on. Chris Poland. I could go on and on and on about how strong these band members are that Dave Mustaine puts together. But basically, I enjoy all their albums between their second album, Peace Sells But Who's Buying, all the way to their 1994 album, Euthanasia. And heck, even Cryptic Writings I even like. I don't really enjoy their modern stuff too much, except for United Abominations and Endgame. That's a great 1-2 punch. Dystopia is also really great as well. And they have a new album on the way. Unfortunately, Dave Ellefson's bass tracks will be erased and recorded by another bass player because of sexual harassment allegations going up against him. So, yeah. So that's kind of sad, but at least they're still going to put out the album. I can't wait to hear it. So with that said, Megadeth coming in here, number 3. Number 2, we are talking about Helloween. Now, I know, I listen to a lot more Helloween compared to my number 1 spot. But there's one crucial difference that I will be talking about when we get to the number 1 band. But Helloween has my favorite metal album of all time. They have my favorite metal song of all time. They probably have my favorite metal vocalist of all time, in Michael Kiske. And even freaking their self-titled album that came out a few days ago. Oh my heavens, that is an amazing album. Helloween is back, boys. And I just heard it topped the German charts. And it ranked number 6 on the Japanese charts. But yeah, number 1 on the German charts for the first time in Helloween's career. That has got to say something right there, boys. Oh man, the new album is absolutely fantastic. Of course, Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2 is my favorite. It will always be my favorite. I love everything from the Michael Kiske era, and I love a lot of stuff from the Andy Darris era. And heck, I even like the debut album from 1985, The Walls of Jericho. Yeah, what more can I say? Even though I listen to Halloween more than the number one spot, and even though Halloween is number one on a lot of my metal lists, like favorite metal album, favorite metal song, and probably favorite metal vocalist, probably my favorite musicianship of all time, something if that's even a thing. But there's going to be one crucial difference when we talk about number one, and so let's freaking get into it. Number one, Metallica. Now, the only reason why I put Metallica higher than Halloween is because Metallica got me into metal, and that is one freaking crucial difference. I listened to a lot of Metallica stuff even before I had even heard of Halloween. So for that reason, I have to put Metallica at number one, even though a lot of their stuff like Master of Puppets, the song and the album are my second favorite in all of metal. I love this band to death. They're a freaking amazing band. And they're probably the most consistent from the big four, along with Anthrax and Slayer. They only had to replace their bass player and their guitar player once when Dave Mustaine left the group. Or rather, he was thrown out of the group, rather. In a very ugly way, too. I love all their albums, except for Saint Anger. Yeah, I even like Load and Reload. I even like the newer album, and I even like Death Magnetic. And of course, Black Album. All the stuff they did in the 80s, even Kill 'Em All, is freaking amazing to me. I love this band, and they top this list. So with that said, Metallica at number one, mainly because they made me a metalhead. So yeah, Metallica at number one. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterEye122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.